Welcome back to the Field of 68 Mid-Major Show. My name is Vince Wolfram. Alongside me are Rocco Miller and Sean Paul. Fellas, mid-major basketball in full effect as the holiday season nears. A big win for Rocco last week at the end of our show. Let's start at the top with that. Rocco, Sean was celebrating in our show prior, and then last week you come with the call your shot pick, and you get a victory. How you feeling over there?
It feels good to be off the schneid, fellas, and happy Thursday to both of you. Cruz Davis and I had a nice conversation that morning. He obviously took my advice to heart because he went out and played all 40 minutes at the Peterson Event Center, Vince, and lit up Pittsburgh for 36 points, 7 assists, one of the most efficient games you'll find for a guy that played all 40 minutes all season and was clearly the hero. But Hofstra, in general, the reason why the pick was made to begin with, they've been improving week over week, and they finally broke through. We saw them lose earlier last week to Columbia in a real heartbreaker. Game was tied with about 15 seconds to go, and Columbia made the game-winning basket. And that was part of my reason for picking, because in college basketball, as you guys well know, you're adjusting game to game, and you're getting better in these closing moments, or you're getting worse. And I look at Hofstra as a team that is growing with confidence. They have a freshman that plays a lot in Preston Edmead, and some really nice pieces around Cruz Davis. This is a team to watch. And the Coastal Athletic Association, I might add, we'll talk about more teams from this particular conference, is arguably the most improved league in America.
Yeah, a huge win, obviously, in the ACC footprint, right? You're going up against Pitt. This is one where Hofstra punched them in the mouth early, Sean. They led, I think it was 28 points, or they led for 28 minutes, 17 points was their biggest lead. How impressive of a win was this, and how legit is Cruz Davis as a top, I guess, emerging mid-major guard?
I mean, he's definitely one of the best mid-major guards in college basketball. He was that last year, now sticking around for another season at Hofstra. He was just lights out in this game, and it wasn't just the scoring. He also had 7 assists. When you can dish like that, when you can score the way he was scoring, there's really no beating a player like that when he's that hot. Hofstra scored 1.29 points per possession, and nobody else other than Davis scored more than 10 points. Like, they only had one other scorer in double figures. So that kind of just speaks to how good he was, at setting the table and just making everything go for this Hofstra team. They're a team that definitely lost some pieces in the portal. So the fact that they are where they are, they only won 15 games last year. They lost Gene Arngren to the portal to George Washington. And now they're look even better than they were last year, only winning 15 games. They have a win over Merrimack, a win at Penn, a win at Pitt. So they've definitely been a very competitive team so far this year. All their losses were fairly close. They began the season with a close loss to UCF. So this is a Hofstra team that has definitely played up to competition. Their defense is really what stands out to me, though. That wasn't their calling card in that game. But so far this year, they're 91st in defensive efficiency, and they're holding teams to 45% shooting from inside the arc, which is a top 25 mark in the country. So if they're able to keep up that defensive intensity, along with having a superstar guard like Cruz Davis, they're going to have a lot of say in what happens in the CAA.
Yeah, it's always interesting, Sean, when you talk about a team, like you mentioned, like Hofstra, that goes portaling, but then also comes back and starts the season on a note maybe most of us didn't expect. Rocco, you mentioned how the CAA conference. What does a win like this for Hofstra do in terms of the CAA and their ceiling in it?
Well, I think the league is just stepping up left and right across non-conference play. So again, it's going to be interesting when these teams have to go head to head. But I think we expected Wilmington, Towson, and Charleston preseason to be our three-headed monster, and then it was kind of everybody else with some upside at places like maybe Campbell, maybe William and Mary. But what we've seen here is Hofstra being able to step up above their weight class and punch a ACC team out on the road. We've seen William and Mary be much better than we expected in one of our top 15 teams probably in all of mid-major basketball early on. Even Charleston's probably the one disappointment. They still are not anywhere close to healthy, and they played a really talented South Florida team almost to the wire yesterday, only losing by 6. And by the way, I had a chance to meet with their staff this week. They're expecting Colby Duggan to be back by the CAA opener later this month. So Charleston's got a lot of hope. Elon has absolutely pounded some teams. And I think, you've seen a lot of inspiring play from Monmouth. We'll talk about the great story going on at Stony Brook. So there is just an incredible amount of depth I think the biggest problem with the CAA over these last handful of years has been 13 schools is too big for a league at this level, and it's hard to get the entire league to raise their floor. But I'll argue right now, at least 11 of the 13 have really impressed, and again, Charleston still has a lot to hope for when they're healthy.
Sean Paul, any takes on that?
No, I think he's right. I mean, Towson obviously getting Tejada and Williamson back, that was going to be a huge boost for them coming into the season, but they're one of those teams, kind of a lower ceiling, but a really high floor because you know what you're going to get from them defensively. You know the style they're going to play. They're going to play really slow. When you have two guys like that and a proven coach in Pat Scarry, you're going to be probably a top 5 team. Are they going to win the league? We'll see. But with teams like William and Mary and Elon emerging, I feel like they have a little bit more firepower than a team like Towson. So I would be a little bit cautious in crowning them like I did in the preseason. So I've certainly changed my tune a little bit.
Yeah, and for Hofstra, their first win against an ACC team since 2015. Let's stay on that same accord. UMass in Springfield, Massachusetts. They extended their dominance over a Boston College team that they've beaten 4 straight times now with a 76-74 win. Marcus Banks was spectacular, Rocco. 29 points, 6 made triples, ice cold from the free throw line to win it. What kind of impact does he have for this team, and how did they get this win done?
Well, Banks is a little spark plug. I mean, he's 6'3", but he plays small and fast, and he's really tough to guard. I had the opportunity to cover him live at UMBC a year ago, and obviously just a pure scorer. So if you don't account for him properly, he's going to make you pay. And like you said, 6 3-pointers yesterday against Boston College, ends up moving the needles significantly. They only took 16 threes as a team, but made 7 of them, of course, 6 by Mr. Banks himself. And UMass is one of those teams that's really hard to gauge where exactly they're at. Boston College has lost to teams like Central Connecticut this year, so it's hard to know how much it's going to mean going forward. But I do think, confidence-wise, with a lot of different pieces entering this program, like Marcus Banks and him being the catalyst of the team right now, and then also intertwining a freshman in Danny Carbuccia, who plays a decent role on the team. It's another interesting story in the MAC. We already know there's a handful of strong teams in the MAC. We know Buffalo has emerged from the ashes to be a contender this year. And now UMass adds another layer to, again, the MAC arguably could be the second most improved conference, or you could argue them over the CAA. I really like the progress from last year to this year from both the MAC and the CAA.
And Sean, UMass crushed the second chance points, the offensive glass, the rebounding battle seemed to be a difference on the stat sheet in this one. Is that physicality piece and that rebounding and the defense becoming a trademark of this Frank Martin team?
No doubt. This is a really tough UMass team. They're winning the glass battle in most of their matchups. They get 36% of their misses on the offensive glass. They hold teams to just a 25% offensive rebounding percentage. Both of those are top 55 nationally, so they are dominant on the glass. They force a lot of turnovers. They're a really good defensive team. They want to push the tempo a little bit. So Frank Martin really has a team that plays the style he wants, and it felt like the last couple of seasons that wasn't quite where UMass was. But now he has buy-in from his guys. He has a leader in Daniel Hankins Sanford, who stuck around for a final season, added some pieces around him like a Leonardo Bettiol, who has been a terrific piece next to Hankins Sanford on that front court. He's averaging 16 points per game with 3 assists and 8 rebounds, Bettiol is. And then Rocco mentioned Danny Carbuccia. He's been a guy that has really stood out to me so far this year. I watched a lot of him during the Feast Week at the Paradise Jam. He had 16 points in that game against Green Bay, and he was really imposing his will. And in the game against Harvard a couple of weeks ago, he had 13 assists. He had 4 assists in this game against Boston College. He's a really quick, speedy point guard, great passer, averaging 5 assists per game, only 1.8 turnovers. He is a great playmaker and someone that can really set the table for someone like Marcus Banks to get some really good looks from the outside.
Yeah, let's sort of move down the East Coast. We're in Springfield. Let's head down to the nation's capital where the Delaware Blue Hens walked into GW. George Washington delivered one of the more surprising mid-major wins of the week, I thought. Blue Hens entered the night, I believe, just 3-6. There was their record, slowed the game down. They kind of punched first. GW never responded. 70-58 final there. Rocco, what impressed you the most with the Blue Hens going into GW and getting a win?
Well, Vince, since we all last convened, Delaware has had a roller coaster. They last Saturday they go to their rival Delaware State, who again Delaware State and the MEAC, really pretty much brand new team there. I think 1 through 9 they're all brand new, and of course at the MEAC level, Delaware expects to beat them. But it's a great rivalry there in the state where our first state here in America, the great state of Delaware, and Delaware State beats them in overtime. So that's what made them 2-6 going into the George Washington game. But I think Delaware approached this George Washington matchup going back to the well, watching that BYU tape from early in the season. When they went to BYU, they had a halftime lead. They started the game out of the kind of out of the woodwork with a ton of momentum there in Provo. And of course, ran out of gas late, end up losing by 17. But that had to be at least a confidence boost that you can go play these bigger, more expensive rosters. George Washington, incredibly invested program this season out in the Atlantic 10. And so I also had the chance to be around Delaware at the Jacksonville Classic, saw both of their games when they beat Greensboro and lost to SIU. So I got to know this team pretty intimately. And Justin Fernandez has just taken on the entire load for the team, as Kevon Riley has been out since opening night. Again, watch his status because he's been trying to work his way back, and they've got numerous other injuries right now. So this is not the full version of Delaware by any means, and yet they were able to go out and start that game yesterday with a double-digit lead early. George Washington works their way back into the game, and then down the stretch, Delaware made all the key plays, never turned it over. I thought that was really a really critical adjustment. They turned it over a ton in the first half, and down the stretch, they got better about that. Fernandez finishes the game with 27. Macon Emery played a big role with 13 points and a key steal and a key block. But for them to be able to go into George Washington and beat them, one, it's a severe gut punch to George Washington's resume. But again, Delaware entering a new phase of their entire program, joining Conference USA, where they're going to have all these crazy road trips coming up and different types of programs coming to their house. They're just trying to adjust and get better. And Martin Inglesby is a very underrated coach. And I just thought that was an incredible bounce back from the Delaware State loss. Two big extremes in the past week.
Yeah, Inglesby 150th win came with that victory. Yeah. And Sean, I want to go to you on this game too, because Delaware, they held a team that was averaging 91 points to just 58. The defensive identity is real. And then you have a guy like Fernandez go score a career high 27 points. You're putting together two sides of the ball at a very, very high level.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't see this one coming. I don't think anybody did. Odds makers didn't see this coming, as Delaware was a 21.5 point underdog on the road. Like, that's a big time number, and they were able to go win outright against the George Washington team that was 60th in Ken Palm entering that game. And George Washington, they're a top 50 offense in the country, and Delaware held them to 0.85 points per possession. They dominated at the rim. George Washington shot just 29% from inside the arc. But we kind of talked about those guards. Justin Fernandez was awesome, and Christian Bliss was terrific at just controlling the game. 12 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, just the ideal point guard to have in this conference. Good size at 6'4", and Fernandez at 6'5". Like, those are guys that start at higher levels. Bliss was at Virginia for a couple seasons. Didn't really get into any games. And then Justin Fernandez, he dealt with some injuries, started at George Mason, and went to Providence with Kim English, and ended up at Delaware this year, and he's really blossoming. He's averaging 16 points per game. He's had a huge year all year. But that pair is going to be really tough in that conference because they are guards with high major talent, and now they're in Conference USA, and they're going to be able to dominate a little bit there. But Rocco talked about their injuries. They are very injured. Kevin Riley was one of their better shooters a season ago. He's been out since the first game of the season. Jameel Brown, he's been out for a while. Freshman guard Mason Ellison didn't play in this game, so they were really limited to 6 or 7 guys in this matchup, and they were able to go on the road, beat a top 75 team, let's call it, in the country in pretty convincing fashion. I think that's one of the more impressive wins we've seen from anybody this year, just in the way it happened. George Washington never really made any kind of run. It always felt like it was Delaware's game, and they end up securing the win as 21.5 point dogs.
Yeah, Delaware holding one of the nation's highest scoring offenses to a season low. That's impressive no matter who you are. Rocco, I want to open up the floor here to you. Pick a game, any game is kind of where I'm going because we have so many from this week that we can talk about mid-major hoops. Just pick a game and we can kind of talk about it from there.
Yeah, sure. I'll give Stony Brook their love now. They had their opportunity with Columbia, and this team's been slowly emerging since their MTE in Daytona Beach. They took a brutal blowout loss to Pacific, but bounced back by beating local Bethune-Cookman there. Nobody thought twice about that, but going to Loyola Marymount straight out of that trip and winning at LMU, a team that was undefeated from almost all of November. It was really impressive to me. And then, of course, took a tough loss on the road to Duquesne, came home and got this red-hot Columbia team. And that was just a great battle throughout the night. Ends up going to overtime. And in the end, Stony Brook wins it by a count of 77-73. One of the underrated and kind of volatile, I should say, transfer pickups they took was Eric Pratt from Milwaukee. Of course, Eric's incredibly skilled. If he basically had the straight and narrow, he'd probably be a Power 5 player. But again, when he's wired on correctly, that's a big time weapon for the Seawolves. He goes for 24 in this matchup, makes 9 of his 11 free throws to help put the game away in overtime. And he is an absolute bucket. I covered the game last year when Milwaukee absolutely blitzed Akron. The game where Milwaukee scored 58 in the first half. I think Pratt was a huge reason why he gets very active in the defensive end and turns defense into offense. In this particular game, 18 turnovers for Columbia. So I think that was a season high for the Lions. Big factor in Stony Brook staying in the game. And this game had a lot of narrow margins. I talked about that on Twitter. But one of the big ones was Stony Brook generated 5 additional possessions compared to Columbia. And in the end, when you win by 4 in overtime, and I think they did have a couple extra possessions in overtime, that was the difference. So just a big win for the Seawolves in general, because going forward now, they've got an additional good win, beating Columbia and beating LMU. They're going to go into this hyper-competitive CAA, and they still get a few more good tests later in non-conference with Marist, a team on the road that's playing top 20 defense in the nation, and a couple home games with Central Michigan and Albany. So I'm just really curious where Stony Brook goes from here. Of course, a team picked near the bottom, and they've had some really rough seasons in the last couple of years.
Yeah, Stony Brook, I mean, in the first half, didn't allow a field goal for the first 7 minutes, just 17 points in the first half for Columbia. 7 straight home wins for Stony Brook dating back to last season. Sean, I'll open it up to you here, just like I did with Rocco. Talk to me about a game, mid-major game that you had noted that you want to talk about here.
Yeah, Utah Valley going to Bowling Green, fresh off that Bowling Green win at Kansas State. Utah Valley goes ahead and goes to Bowling Green and pulls out an 82-71 win. That's just an impressive win because obviously Bowling Green had all the momentum coming in. Utah Valley held them to 4 of 24 shooting from three-point range, and Utah Valley went 24 of 34 from inside the arc. And I'm not great at math, that's 70% though. And Utah Valley this year, I mean, just look at what they lost. They have their 3 best players last year, all transferred to high major schools. You have Carter Welling, who is one of the leading scorers for Clemson. You have Dom Nelson, who's a key rotation piece at Iowa State. And then you have Tanner Toulson also in the mix, who averaged 13 points per game a season ago. He's now playing pretty heavy minutes at TCU. So they're 3 top players from a season ago, all transferred to high major schools. And Todd Phillips has done an outstanding job making this team a contender and the favorite to win the WAC. Jackson Holcomb, 16 points per game. He played pretty well against Bowling Green. He had 19 points in that one, 7 for 7 from inside the arc. He's not a shooter, but he's great at getting into the lane and making things happen. Isaac Davis, another guy who scored 18 points, 7 of 10 shooting from inside the arc. But it all kind of runs through Trevin Leonard. He had 9 assists in this game. He had 6 points. He's one of the better assist guys in college basketball. He's great at setting the tone. He's one of their few players who returned and played the same role as he did a season ago, and he's really held this team together and helped lead them to new heights. States. This Utah Valley team, they're 85th in KenPom right now. They finished last year 112th in KenPom. Utah Valley also picked up a win over Idaho State yesterday. So now they're 7-3. They lost on the road at San Diego State. They lost a 1-point game on the road against Fresno State, and then got blown out by Boise State. They have a win over UC Irvine, a win on a neutral against South Dakota State. They have 4 wins over top 175 teams in KenPom. So this is a battle-tested Utah Valley team. Obviously, the WAC doesn't have a ton of teams this year, and they're the clear favorite to win the league with how impressive they've been so far, especially with their intensity on the defensive end.
Yeah, Utah Valley comes in and knocks off a team that was fresh off a win against Kansas State, Rocco. 20 turnovers for Bowling Green. That's a testament to this Utah State defense, a season high for them in that category. That kind of felt like the story of this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a team. Oh, go
ahead.
It's all you, Sean. You run with it.
No, I mean, just being 61st in defensive efficiency, forcing turnovers at the rate they do. I mean, that's just what special defenses do, and that's what Utah Valley's been about all year.
Rocco, one last game before we go to break here, because we've got a couple to choose from. UNO versus Incarnate Word. Miami, Ohio is a good one. I mean, you hit on Stony Brook. We've got plenty of great games here. But let's hit one quick before we head to break.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk to Miami, Ohio head coach Travis Steele about their 9-0 start, great win in overtime over UNC Asheville. But I did want to quickly mention Holy Cross, a team that we recognized on the social media channels earlier this week. Not too often you get to talk about Holy Cross basketball, and they win the Tom Konchalski Classic in Rose Hill last weekend over Fordham. And Gabe Warren had an incredible game, career high with 25 points, 6 threes, 8 rebounds, and almost all 40 minutes, played 39 minutes. And I think the big story about the game was Holy Cross ending on a 15-2 run to completely shock the Rams. That's a big deal in the Northeast. And also, speaking of the Northeast, last week they got an important win over Northeastern. So just an incredible week overall for this Holy Cross team. They have a sophomore by the name of Tyler Boston, who's shooting it over 40% from deep. He's north of 85% on free throws and one of the best assist ratios in the Patriot League. So maybe Holy Cross can make some noise this year in the Patriot. If last week was any indication and this 4-game winning streak is any indication, they should be.
Yeah, Holy Cross, a nice win. We're going to head to break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the teams that have surprised us to this point. It's going to be a fun conversation when we come back.
As you know by now, we have teamed up with BetMGM again this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we will have special offers for Field of 68 fans, including same-game parlays, best-in-class live betting, and daily odds boost. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app, you sign up using bonus code FIELD, you deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. If you're not a member of the Field of 68's On3 community, make sure to go check us out. Get access to all of Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster's written content, including coaching carousel breakdowns, info on who is and isn't entering the transfer portal, insider recruiting information from none other than Joe Tipton, X's and O's analysis of all the teams in college basketball, and access to our message board community. A 7-day trial costs you $1. The Field of 68 on 3. Get the scoop.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 Mid-Major Show. Guys, a lot of surprises have come through mid-major basketball this year, and what other way to document it than to rank them? That's what we've done, and that's what we're going to do here for the next couple of minutes. You've ranked your surprises this year in mid-major basketball from 5 to 1. Rocco, we're going to start with you at number 5. Sean will follow up with number 5, and we'll go down your list from there, breaking down the biggest surprises you've seen in mid-major hoops.
Sounds like a fun exercise. Let's do it. So my number 5 here, fellas, is the Bearcats of Sam Houston, mainly because it was one of those teams like several others made up of primarily portal players or players coming back like Damon Nicholas from a significant injury. Almost impossible to project how good they're going to be. Now, I do have great respect for Chris Mudge, longtime assistant of Jason Hooten, and I've been waiting for him to get it rolling now in his second stanza with the Bearcat program as the head man. But guys like Po' Boy King coming from various D1 programs, Cashy Nat coming from non-Division One angle, Justin Bagg. I mean, there's just so many random parts to the team, but you can start to see now what Coach Mudge saw in terms of being able to rebound the ball at an elite rate. Right now, top 40 in the nation in offensive rebounding. They've been able to find different heroes each night, so it's not dependent on one guy. They're incredibly deep, 10 to 11 deep every night so far. They had a lead at halftime at undefeated Oklahoma State. They gave Oklahoma State one of their best scares, and they also played Utah almost to the wire earlier in the month. They've beaten everybody else, including a win over Wyoming. I think that's Wyoming only has lost twice. It's to Sam Houston and to Texas Tech. And they went up to Idaho and won basically 2 road games against both Idaho schools, who are both, by the way, playing pretty well in the Big Sky. So the Sam Houston story continues to get better. They got they got a long break, but next Wednesday they go to Oregon State, where they have another chance to get a good win for this level. Top 25 free throw shooting team, and just a top 100 offense already. So, and they're playing fast but under control with pretty good defense. I think they're a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my number 5 is kind of a team that was really good last year, so it might be cheating a little bit, but kind of similar to how I talked about Utah Valley. It's North Alabama lost a ton from last season. They had 4 guys that averaged double figures that are gone. Jakari Lane transfers to Texas A&M, Will Susie, Daniel Ortiz, and Tay Fields all graduated. So this was a team that was comprised of a bunch of returning guys. Besides Cornelius Williams and Dante Backus, those guys were proven. They didn't really have a ton that was proven, but you have a guy like Kevin Dukovicic who's averaging 13 points per game. He didn't play a whole lot last year, but he's really stepped into a big role and helped in that backcourt. Kanan Jefferson, another guy, didn't play a ton last year, 10 points per game so far this season. Obviously, North Alabama has that win on the road against San Francisco. That was a really big one. They won another big road game against Jacksonville State. They're not to the level that they were a season ago, but the fact that they look like an ASUN contender, given everything that they lost from last season, kind of speaks to the program that Tony Pujols has going in Florence, Alabama, because for a minute there, I wasn't sure what this team was going to look like. They literally have 0 players that came in via the portal this year, and they are doing an excellent job of player development and making everybody who stayed within the program better, which is a bit different than what we see from most teams nowadays.
That's a great shout. Number 4 on my end is going back to Stony Brook, so I'll keep it brief. We gave some flowers to the Seawolves already, but I think, one other piece that I didn't mention is Rob Brown, one of the best ball protectors right now in the country per the metrics. He's 95th in protecting the ball, and continuing to run the offense through Rob Brown is really helping the efficiency level of the Stony Brook offense. Defensively, they're a top 100 team right now in defending the paint, as we mentioned earlier. And I think, in general, if they can continue to get stops at that rate, they got to improve the perimeter defense a little bit further. But right now, a very surprising only 3 losses are Yale, Pacific, and Duquesne. Again, the LMU and Columbia wins are great building blocks. And a pretty dominant win over Brown as well, nothing to slouch at. So, again, Stony Brook's a team still probably operating in a world where there's not a lot of expectations, but they're the kind of team that can continue to add to the meat of the CAA and how quality that league has been so far.
Yeah, for me, UC San Diego is going to be number 4 on my list. I talked about them a lot last week. I talked about how I think their offense this year is better than last year's, just top to bottom. I still agree with that because of the way they can shoot the basketball. They have shooters up and down the floor this season. Leo Beath has been at the teeth of that. He's been awesome. Transfer from Lynn University, started his career at FAU. He has been fantastic. He's going to be one of the better players in the Big West. And Clint Allard coming up, he was an assistant under Eric Olin last year, gets a promotion, and he just added a bunch of shooting next to Leo Beath with Alex Shakin, with Tom Beatty. Those two guys have been just nailing it from the outside so far this year. Aiden Burke, he's just progressed in a big way. He was with the team last year, didn't play a huge role. This year, he's averaging 11 points per game and shooting 51% from three. They don't have the same defensive identity that they had a season ago because they were so good at forcing turnovers. And they were so tough. But the way this team can shoot the competitive against just about anybody when those shots are falling because of how dominant they can be in that win against Towson and the win against Bradley, they just stomped on those teams from the jump, and they weren't very close contests because of how good UC San Diego is shooting from the outside.
Absolutely. William and Mary, I'm going to stay in the the old Colonial, now called the Coastal Athletic Association, of course, the CAA. And William and Mary, I thought was going to be much better this year, but I didn't think it would be quite this level. They've been performing so well. And of course, I had them down in Jacksonville for both of their wins, continuing to play at an electric rate, top 3 tempo team nationally. But I think one of the differences is not so dependent on the 3-point shot. And I think that surprises a lot of people. A few more weapons down low, Joel Emmanuel and Tunde Valberg Fasasi's probably been their most important interior player. But the key to William and Mary has been, I was there for the game when both Reese Miller got injured at the end of game 1 in Jacksonville, and at the beginning of game 2, Kyle Pulliam went down. Well, in that last loss to George Washington, when they did fight pretty hard, they got both those guys mixed back in. They both didn't play well, but that's a great sign because they'll have them back going forward, you would have to assume. And I think the other important thing was in between those two access points, fellas, you had a dominant win over Abilene Christian, basically without both players by 30 plus. They handled Old Dominion no problem, and they went up to Duquesne, an A10 team, and got a good road win for this level of team. The tempo is completely wearing teams out because it shows up in the defensive 3-point percentage, where right now the opponents are only shooting 25.4%, which is a putrid percentage, 5th best in the country. And that has to do with a lot to do with the fatigue factor. And you're seeing, this is a team last year, they took the 3rd highest amount of 3-pointers per percentage. And now it's gotten a much more balanced 3s and 2s. So they're just looking to run off of makes, run off of misses, and just create the easiest possible basket. And they've got interior threats, not just the perimeter shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same team at number 3. So producer Dagan hinted that that we had the same for one of them. I guess it was William and Mary. So yeah, that's why I was smiling when he said that. But yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what Rocco said. But just from a portal standpoint, like I think Brian Earl and his staff really hit it out of the park with some of these guys, and a lot of them, like Killian Brokoff and Tunde Valberg Fasasi, like those two guys have gotten so much better in this system because they're playing to their strength. Like Brokoff can pass the ball, he can shoot it at 6'9". That plays really well. He's a stretch 5 in this offense, and with how fast they play, having him and Fasasi, 2 really skilled bigs who can pass it, that is such a big boost, and it's made a real difference for this William and Mary team so far this year. They don't have very much rim protection, but their positional size, just all around besides on the interior, is really strong. Like Chase Lowe is 6'5", 205. He's their point guard essentially. He's been awesome. Like he's a great connector. He's not a shooter, but he's an elite defender. He is a great playmaker. Just does all the winning things. And then you have Joel Emmanuel at 6'6". You have Cade Haskins, who's a sniper at 6'6". And then you have Fasasi at 6'7" and Brokoff at 6'9". So having all those guys with all that length, with how fast they play, it's just such a big strength. So this William and Mary team has just been incredible so far this year. I definitely think they can win the CAA. They have a lot of talent, and just to me, their style. Brian Earl won a lot at Cornell with it, and he's carrying it over. They'll pressure, they'll force turnovers, they're going to shoot threes. They're just that frenetic pace is just tough to match up with, and with all the depth and all the talent, all the shooting they have, they're going to be a really tough team to take out in the CAA.
Absolutely. So we go to number 2 now. Buffalo is my choice here, and talk about surprising. I don't think anybody had them this deep into the season with just the one loss, and the one loss to St. Bonaventure last week was more than acceptable. I thought they battled pretty hard. Bonnies are pretty underrated themselves for the A10 level. and they have a top 30 resume, the Bonnies, coming into this week. So Buffalo helped with that. But I think the fact that they turned around just a couple nights later, went down to Baltimore. UMBC is an undervalued team, and they were in a tough spot in that game, and they were able to come back, pull it out. The big reason why I think overall this year is, the addition of Daniel Freitag coming from Wisconsin, where he only got to play in 14 games last year. He's really a star at the MAC level. He could give Johnson from Akron a run for his money for MAC Player of the Year. Right now, he's shooting 44% from three. Obviously, that might not continue all year, but if it does, look out. He's an 82% almost automatic free throw shooter with the amount of volume he's already taken. And he's doing everything well in terms of taking care of the basketball and shot selection and getting his teammates involved. And I think, that game against UMBC showed in certain matchups, they can leverage their big man, Tim Obo. Tim Obo had 19 points against a very undersized UMBC. They'll have a few opponents like that in the MAC. They'll also have, of course, undoubtedly very difficult situations on the road playing in the MAC. When you're from Buffalo, you have to travel further than pretty much anybody except for UMass now. So you're constantly fighting that fight, and that's what being towards the top of the MAC standings will require for the Bulls. So far, this team looks like they have the quality, depth, and the overall balance to continue this forward, and I'm just really, really surprised by that.
Yeah, number 2 for me is Elon. Again, a team from the CAA. We've talked about them a lot on this show. It's pretty much just the CAA edition of the mid-major show. But Elon, to me, so far this season has been incredibly surprising based on what they lost from a season ago. You had the Simpkins brothers, one transferred to Seton Hall, one transferred to Oregon. You have Nick Dorn, he transfers to Indiana. And then Sam Sherry graduated. Those are 4 guys who averaged 14-plus points per game last season that are no longer at the program, and Matt Van Komen, the 7'4" big man, also transferred. So it was a huge retooling effort for Coach Taylor, but they've done an excellent job just maximizing what they got in the portal. And the biggest one is Chandler Cuthrell, who came over from Fort Wayne, started his career at UTSA. Last year at Purdue Fort Wayne, he averaged 7 points per game, shot the ball 5 times per game, 25% from 3, only a couple free throws per game. This season, he is a top 3 scorer in points per game in college basketball, 22.9 points per game, shooting it over 13 times, 54% from the field, shooting 37% from 3, and getting to the line 9 times per game. Like, this is a guy that was not even a starter in the Horizon League last year, and now he is one of the top scorers in the country. I think that's one of the best development stories you'll find. So you look at the top scorers in the country, it's PJ Haggerty, it's Cameron Boozer, it's Chandler Cuthrell, it's Chad Baker-Mazara, and Bruce Thornton. Like, one of those is a lot different than the others, and that is Chandler Cuthrell, because he was like a middle rotation guy for a middling Horizon League team a season ago, and just the way that he's been able to become the guy at Elon has been very impressive to me. And then some of the other moves they made in the portal, I just think they did a great job with. Like, that they pulled off that win over Wofford. Cuthrell scored 21. Kasper Klocik scored 11. He started his career at St. Joe's, went to Albany last year, and now he's playing a pretty big role next to Cuthrell on that interior. But the 2 guards they added, Randall Pettis from Northern Kentucky, he has been an elite shooter from the outside, and Bryson Coakley. Those 2 have both really shot it well, and they've added a nice element to this Elon team. They're a top 100 offense in the country. They're shooting 36% from 3. They're elite on the offensive glass. Their defense is a bit of a problem. They're outside the top 320 defensive efficiency, so they don't really defend a whole lot. But a lot of their losses have been close. They lost to Marshall by 7. They lost to Mercer by 7 and lost to Furman by 9. So they're not really getting blown out besides that Miami game. But they've been pretty good so far this year. I'm buying a lot of stock in this Elon team.
Yeah, and if you leave a window open for Elon, they're going to steamroll you. That's what they've been doing to a lot of those teams that they crushed. It's been surprising, no doubt. For the number 1, Sean, I know that they lost yesterday, but I'm sticking with UT Martin just because this is a team in the Ohio Valley Conference. One of the bottom 4 conferences in America. Not working with much of a budget, bringing in 13 international players in NCAA. I don't know if that's a record, but it's certainly the most currently. And obviously, you know the story by now. They open the year with their first Division I game at UNLV and get that win. Then they go to Bradley the following week and get that win by double digits. And last night they ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw with Southern Illinois playing much better. And I think the problem for UT Martin, not only in the Southern Illinois loss, but also they did take a loss to Southern Miss, is just that next level up, that physicality inside. They can't exactly match up with it. They have great spacing offensively, do the Skyhawks, and they play very organized. They're also very skilled at getting to the foul line. They're top 25 in the country getting to the foul line. But against teams at that next level, they can get swallowed up a little bit. So I think the book's a little bit out on how to slow down the Skyhawks. However, here's the good news, and here's why the surprise, I think, can continue. Non-conference play is essentially over now. All they have left is a non-Division I game on Sunday. Then we're off to nothing but OVC games. And as these Skyhawks start matching up with OVC teams, that style that's worked, there's a 7-3 team. They've also beaten some other teams from the Big South, from the SWAC, et cetera. I think that applies to a lot of the OVC competition. And I think if we did an OVC poll right now, UT Martin might be the favorite. And it's just been an incredible story, to be honest. And nobody had any expectations for this team, who started the year 328 in KenPom and are currently still 238. So it's still a 90-point jump.
Yeah, another team that's made a pretty rapid rise in KenPom is Columbia. I didn't see them being like this right away under Kevin Hovde, obviously coming from the Kyle Smith and Todd Goldentree. Hovde was on the last Columbia staff that had a winning season in 2015-2016 under Kyle Smith. They won 25 games that year. They have not had a winning season since, so it's been a decade since Columbia last had a winning season, and they are well on their way to having one this season. 9-2. They did lose the other day to Stony Brook, but they were able to fight back in that game. Stony Brook was up by 16 points with 3 minutes left, and Columbia clawed back and forced overtime. Kind of just speaks to their will, how tough they are, how good they are on the glass. That's one of the biggest strengths of this team. 40% offensive rebounding rate. They hold teams to very few offensive rebounds on the other end. And that's kind of the style of most Kyle Smith and Todd Golden teams. They talk about the shot volume battle and limiting possessions for the opposing offense. And Kevin Hovde's following that to a T. They have been excellent on the glass this year. But to me, the fact that Columbia has been as shorthanded as they've been throughout the year, and they're still able to be 9-2 with some pretty impressive wins. They're missing Zion Adine Bedry. He's been out for a little bit. He's only played 5 games. And Avery Brown has only played 3 games. And those are 2 guys who are coming back. They're both starters, and they both haven't played in a while. So the fact that this team is doing what they're doing, they're not at full strength, just speaks a lot to what Kevin Hovde's been able to do in his first season at Columbia. There's going to be some really bright days ahead for this program, and this season it kind of all starts with Kenny Noland, averaging 17 points per game, shooting 40% from 3. He's 36 for 36 from the foul line, so he's been lights out from the line if you don't want to foul him late in the game. And even a guy like Gerard O'Keefe, who last year averaged 7 points per game. This year he's averaging 9 points per game, shooting 43% from 3. He had 24 points in that win against Albany. So it's been a different guy on a lot of nights as the secondary guy next to Nolan with all those injuries. It's just been really impressive for Columbia so far this year. To me, they've been the biggest surprise and the most impressive team from the mid-major ranks that we probably didn't talk a lot about heading into the year.
Fellas, that was a masterclass, as a surprise to no one, because these two came with it, 1 through 5, the most surprising teams in mid-major basketball. And surprise, surprise, when we come back, we will be with Miami head coach Travis Steele joining the show when we come back in just 1 minute.
As you know by now, we have teamed up with BetMGM again this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we will have special offers for Field of 68 fans, including same-game parlays, best-in-class live betting, and daily odds boost. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app. You sign up using bonus code FIELD. You deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Are you trying to follow everything happening in college basketball? It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for recruiting news, game analysis, portal updates, and much, much more. For just $50 a year, you get access to the same information that your favorite coaching staff is subscribed to. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help. Make sure you subscribe today.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 Mid-Major Show. We are joined now by Miami, Ohio head coach Travis Steele. Coach, welcome in. First off, congratulations. You're 9-0, best start since 1995. When you look at your group, obviously you've had some close games. You've had, like we were talking about, some blood pressure through the roof. But where do you see your team right now, and how is the identity forming?
Yeah, the nice thing for us here is we were able to retain a good portion of our roster from last year. Right. We had a good year last year, won 25 games, made it to the conference championship game, lost to Akron, my brother. So he's got the bragging rights at all of our family reunions this year. And he reminds me of it constantly. But we led for 39 minutes and 55 seconds of that game. Right. And they got us at the very, very end. And, we were lucky to be able to keep the bulk of our roster from last year. And that's obviously helped lead us to some success here early on this season. And in a world and a landscape that's full of turnover, we have a lot of retention, and we have some really talented new guys though too. So I think the identity for our program is still the same as it was last year. It's just try to be the most connected team in college basketball, and hopefully we can make that come to life on both ends of the floor. How we defend. It's not about, shutting out my man. It's about how can we stop them from getting a good shot. And then on offense, working together to produce a great shot for Miami. And we have really unselfish guys that make the right plays, that have high IQs and are really skilled. So we try to really make that come to life every single day with how we play.
Coach Steele, good to see you again. Had you in Jacksonville for the Express game when you guys came in for one and rallied to beat Greensboro. Not too different from last night's game. Obviously, last night's game ended up being much closer, but you had to rally. What makes the group so resilient? Is it just the experience of playing together a year ago, or is just a group of ultra competitive guys? What would you attribute it to?
Yeah, I think we have great player leadership. Our three captains have been in our program. Evan Ipsaro, this is his third year in our program. He's our point guard. When you have a point guard like him, man, in close games, you feel pretty good. Same thing with Ian Elmer, third-year player who's voted as a captain, and then Peter Suter, who's in his second year. Those guys' ability to never panic when things get tight. And it could be a good thing. It's a blessing and a curse because they know we can get down a little bit and we can fight back, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you want to keep your foot on the pedal the entire time. But our group never panics, and we're built for those moments. And we got great guard play, which obviously usually guard play dictates who wins in close games, especially as the season goes on.
Coach Sean Paul here. For me, yesterday was a big story about, like you said, Evan Ipsaro hitting that big shot late, how steady he was. And his last two games, he's been great all year, but 24 points against Maine, 27 against Asheville. How has his development looked like from you, someone who gets to see him every day? This is a guy who was your sixth man basically last year, 6 points per game. He's averaging 16 points per game this year. Did you know he had this in him, and what does it look like to see him grow from a freshman who was pretty good to now a star in the MAC?
Yeah, really proud of him. The work that he's put in, he's so process oriented. He's an everyday guy. His position coach, Jonathan Holmes, I want to give him a special shout out. He's our associate head coach. Yeah. Does a great job. Has done a tremendous job with Evan as well. And, he's done a great job. He's lost about 25 to 30 pounds since he's been here. And he's only 5. We list him at 6 foot. That's probably being a little generous. I'm taller than he is if he's watching this day. So I'm about 6 foot, give or take a little bit, so he's about 5'10". But he's lost 25 to 30 pounds. And, man, has it made a huge difference for his game. I think he's the fastest player in America. I mean, he is an absolute bullet out there. And he's so tough. and he's playing with so much confidence. The last 2 years, we've kind of played point guard by committee with him and Mekhi Cooper, who was a really good player for us. But Evan really ascended late in the year last year in the MAC play. I thought he took his game to another level. He had an incredible offseason, the best of anybody in our program. And so I'm not surprised by his success. I'm proud of him, seeing it all. So, he's our pulse. He's our engine in a lot of things that we do and the way that we play.
Hey, Travis, where are you right now? You're in a science room?
You're going to laugh. So listen, my son is in 7th grade. He goes to Summit Country Day in Cincinnati. I watched he played up on the 8th grade game. And then now he's playing on the 7th grade game. I told my wife, Amanda, I said, hey, listen, I got to go back in this classroom where it's going to be quiet for a little bit, and then I'll be back out there for the second half.
Well, we appreciate the dedication. That is awesome. Yeah. We haven't had a coach in a science room yet. So you
yeah, I was wondering what that was about. I'm like, this looks interesting.
I also want to, 1995, 96. I don't want to date myself too much. I think we're close to the same age, but Wally Zerbiak was a freshman that year. And does Wally stay in touch with you guys? Did he say anything about the undefeated start, or does he just let you guys do your thing?
He's been great. He's been ultra supportive since I've gotten here, even through the first couple years. Listen, the first 2 years were rough. I mean, year one, it felt like we didn't win a game the entire year. We had a great group of young men that got better late. We qualified for the MAC tournament, which was a huge deal in itself, and give the guys and our staff all the credit in the world. Year 2, we were better. But Wally's been with us since day one. Once I got here, first text I got was from Wally Zerbiak, and just saying, hey, anything he needed to, support-wise, he was there. And he's been awesome, man. So he came back for our Midnight Madness in the fall. He's been back for a game this year already as well. So he's very, very active within our program.
Love that.
Coach, last question for me. For you guys to get to the NCAA tournament, which obviously you guys were really close to doing last season, what's the one thing that has to happen for you guys? Just one thing in particular that really stands out.
I think, again, I always go back to, offensively, we're going to be special. We have a lot of talent out there. I think our system is really good, fits our personnel. We're going to score a lot of points. It's to win 3 games in 3 days. You have to win when you're not having an off shooting night, right? And so you got to rely on your defense and rebounding in order to help give yourself a shot. And we've been really good defensive rebounding so far this year. We're number 1 in the country right now. Defensively, like last night, we had a couple big stops. Antoine Woolfolk and Ian Elmer, 2 big individual defensive plays at the end of the game that solidified the game for us, which was good to see because we haven't been able to do that in previous years. We've had to outscore teams. And if we can get our defense, if we're taking pride in that end, like I said, I have no doubt about it. We're going to average 85, 87 a game. Can we defend and can we win when we're having a poor shooting night?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. There was only
joining us. Oh, go ahead, Rock.
Oh, yeah, no, we appreciate you joining us for sure. And I'll turn it back to you, Vince. But I just wanted to say there was only 7 total offensive rebounds in that game last night. And I kind of feel like a lot of your games have been that way because just the way you guys play, you shoot a lot from the outside and then you keep them off the offensive glass. It's been fun to watch.
But you mentioned we need to be better at offensive rebounding. And we're horrendous.
There you go.
We're not horrendous.
That
should
create some margin for you, Coach.
It's everything, right? You're just trying to find the smallest of margins. That's the difference, right? And we're taking care of the ball at a high level. Man, we're shooting at a high level. We need more possessions. I want to score more points. How can we get to 100? How can we get 95? So we need to get on that offensive glass.
Yeah, those averages, we're going to see those bad boys go up. And you'll probably be talked about on our show every week if that continues. Coach, we appreciate you joining us. Hey, and go enjoy the second half.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Best of luck the rest of the way. And this Miami of Ohio team has been so impressive. We talked about it. Best record since 1995-96. Rocco's throwing out Wally Zerbiak. We got all sorts of names going around. But this MAC conference so far has been pretty impressive with Buffalo and Kent State, both at 9-1. This Miami, Ohio team at undefeated. Sean, what's impressed you the most about this MAC conference so far, and who do you have your eye on?
I mean, just the depth of the league, right? You have Eastern Michigan, who is bottom 5 in Ken Palm in this league. They went on the road to beat Cincinnati. Buffalo's just above them. They're 203rd in Ken Palm. I think that's a little bit underrated, and they're 9-1. Ohio has a lot of talent. UMass, we saw what they could do yesterday against Boston College. You have Toledo is always going to be a bit of a threat with Sonny Wilson and Leroy Blyden. Todd Kowalczyk doing a great job there as usual. Kent State with Delrico Gillespie. Obviously, we talked about Miami of Ohio, Akron. They're 55th in Ken Palm right now. Then you have Bowling Green, who showed they can win a lot of tough games, especially with their road win over Kansas State. So I just think the depth of the league has been really impressive so far this year. There is going to be no easy nights in the MAC in 2025, 2026.
I'll pose the same question to you. What's surprised / impressed?
Yeah, the group of the entire conference. Yeah, Sean nailed it. He went team by team. I think, Eastern Michigan as well. Like they beat Oakland, a team that I think is my pick to win the Horizon. Eastern Michigan's done it more than once, in my opinion, in terms of stepping it up. I think even at the very bottom, I was with Central Michigan for a week. I know their results lately, they've been outclassed by some bigger teams. They just got steamrolled by St. Louis. I don't think there's a lot of shame in that. I think St. Louis does that to a lot of teams. And I do think the Central Michigan team is going to be so well coached, and eventually they'll maybe break through later this year. So I got my eye on them just as a more of a depth. And I think, 1 through 10 or so, we're definitely going to have quality teams. Northern Illinois, Ball State, jury's a little bit out, but that's a big improvement. I think last year's MAC was the worst MAC I've seen in 20 years, and now it's back in a big way. So not only did they course correct the problems as a league from last year, but now they're much deeper than they were even before last year. So I don't know if that's all directly related to football or not, but I think there's clearly a commitment for Miami, Ohio to be able to retain the players they did, for Akron to retain the players they did, for Kent State to get Delrico Gillespie back, Toledo to get Sonny Wilson back. So there's clearly some more resources than I think there were a year ago, and it's showing up in the conference-wide records.
Quote of the day: the MAC is back. It's good stuff from that conference. A lot of fun already had, but a lot more to be had as the season continues, and plenty of games to watch for this weekend. This is a segment where we'll try to go sort of quickly through some of the games to preview this weekend. Sean, I'll go to you, I guess, on this one. Quick games to watch for as we head into another weekend.
Yeah, one that stands out to me is Hofstra against Syracuse. Hofstra trying to get another upset win. Maybe they have it in them. Cruz Davis, another nice chance to dominate another ACC foe.
Rocco, what about you?
Yeah, I'll start with staying the MAC with Akron. The MAC's best team on by the metrics in taking on Murray State in a very interesting game down in Henderson, Nevada. It's a quadruple header. Murray State is also in my top 10. Spoiler alert. So I think this would be a high-flying, action-packed game. Murray State had the lessons learned from losing to McNeese down in the Cayman Islands. So I think you'll see an improved Murray State over the year under a new head coach, Ryan Miller. And then Akron's Akron, right? They just steamrolled Tulane. We didn't mention that yet. So that shapes up to be a showdown on Saturday for me.
Yeah, and we're going to be showing down right now the Call Your Shot picks. There's a lot riding on this one since 2 shows in a row we've gotten wins. I'm hoping that it's a producer Dagan or Vince victory today. Maybe we can spread some wealth. But let's get into it here. I'm going to start. I'm going with one that maybe is unlikely and unexpected from the team here, but I'm going with the Evansville Purple Aces. Yes, they're 4-6. They're heading up to South Bend to play a Notre Dame team who was just announced earlier this week. They're down star guard Marcus Burton. Evansville, they lost by 1 to Western Kentucky, a Western Kentucky team I think that could find themselves in the NCAA tournament come March. Idaho lost to Notre Dame by 15 in their first game without Burton. I think there's a chance that the Purple Aces pull it off, but you never know. I'm going with the Purple Aces. Rocco, what do we think?
Yeah, that's a huge long shot. I'm not going that crazy. I'm gonna, but you're right. With the Burton injury, you've got an angle. So hopefully the Purple Aces can continue to build confidence, and maybe that's their big day. I'm going to go west, closer to home here. And Montana State's a team I've been tracking closely. They've been so close so many times, but they're still waiting for their big upset. I don't know if this qualifies as a huge upset, but they are going to Oregon State on Saturday, a game I think they can get. The problem and the thing that makes it a little bit more of an upset is they are down both Christian King, and at last check, I think Caven Holden is still going to be out. But here's a team throughout the season, went to Colorado, played super tough, lost by 6, went to a great Utah State, lost in overtime, lost by 4 at Boise, lost by 9 at Stanford. So they've been right, and they lost to Denver on basically a buzzer beater. So this Montana State team's much better, I think, than their 4-6 record. And so when you see the ticker on Saturday and Montana State has more points than Oregon State, it's probably going to catch you by surprise. You heard it here first.
Sean, what do we think?
Yeah, I mean, my angle is an injury angle like Marcus Burton being hurt. It's not a Montana State at Oregon State situation. I'm a fan of fun and chaos, and this game would be both Iona going to beat Rick Pitino and St. John's. Dan Giroux has a really fun team. We had him on the show earlier this year. They have a lot of skilled players. Sabali as a point forward is really good. They have a lot of shooters. They have a lot of size. CJ Anthony has been a stud so far this year. And just a storyline of Iona going on the road, beating Rick Pitino's former school. Just I need the storylines. I need the chaos. I need something to tweet about. So give me Iona over St. John's.
I like that one. It's gutsy. All right, let's go to producer Dig and talk to me.
All right, fellas. You guys are all going games over the weekend and stuff like that. I'm going way down the line. We're going next Tuesday. Give me Marist over Georgia Tech.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
John Donne. It's the Red Foxes, winners of 4 straight. And, well, they do play Bryant this weekend, so we're going to say 4 straight for now. They could be 5 straight by the time the game happens, but they're only allowing teams to score 60 points per game. 60 points per game. Georgia Tech struggles to score already. Give me the Red Foxes.
Love it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Great
I love
pick.
it. Yeah, we're certainly calling our shots here on this one, and knowing our luck, one's gonna land, and we're gonna love every last second of it. This has been the Field of 68 Mid-Major Show. We chatted it up with Coach Steele up at Miami, Ohio. We ranked the surprises in the mid-major season so far, and plenty more to come. Hopefully this weekend or Tuesday in Dagan's case, but we're hoping for some good wins and some good mid-major hoops coming up here soon. Rocco Miller, Sean Paul, my name is Vince Wolfram, and we will see you guys next time.